Welcome to the Mindfulness and Meditation Summit, a free online event where you'll receive heartfelt guidance from leaders in the mindfulness field to help you fortify and balance mind, body, and spirit. Share this powerful event with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at the Shift Network. And now your host, Kaira Lingo.
So welcome everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us. And I'm very excited to introduce our special guest today, Pascal Auclair. Pascal is a Dharma teacher and co-founder of True North Insight in Montreal, Canada. He's an internationally known meditation teacher, and he loves sharing with everyone the powerful and liberating practices of mindfulness and the ancestral wisdom coming from the Buddha. Pascal, it's a great pleasure to have you joining us today. Warmest welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure. So today we're going to be looking at how we can meet uncertainty with tenderness, which is so relevant and timely in this moment of great disruption. So I'd like to begin by asking you how you have met uncertainty in your life.
Well, that's a deep question, but I'm willing to dive in. So, well, the first thing that jumped in my mind when you said this was with great fear, I have met uncertainty, and you know, as you know very well, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and there is a lot of uncertainty, and to me, if you allow me. Kaira Jewel, I'll dive right in. This is not my first pandemic to go through. I've maybe 30 years ago now, or a little bit less. I've gone through another one, and it seems it was different in some ways because it was not shared in the same way that it is this time globally. The pandemic that I went through was the AIDS one. And so when I was 25 years old, I learned I was HIV positive. That's a long time ago when I was very, very young and not wise. And I didn't have the practice that I have behind me now. And it was very, very, very scary times. And I was experiencing a lot of confusion and fear, and as you can imagine, shame, and it was so difficult. And this is when I actually met if I can say it like this, the practice of mindfulness. And so, I went in a monastery, in a Buddhist monastery, and I was taught some of the practices. And, meditation, I would sit there and just think about how, I'm going to die, how my parents must be afraid for me and angry at me and all this. And my teachers were telling me, inviting me, giving me instructions that were very extremely simple. And I think I was so desperate and scared that I was willing to listen to anybody. And so they were inviting me to just hear, the sounds of the night, or the silence, or just feel my breath, as we do in meditation, or just feel my hands resting where they were resting. And things like this, when my mind wanted to just take off, in all kinds of constructions, and all kinds of stories, and then all kinds of projections and anticipation about the future. But they kept inviting me to actually just feel the body sitting here, sometimes in the dark, sometimes in the early morning, again and again, can you, Pascal, feel the breath? And they taught me to kind of cut through a lot of my spinning in my mind through sensory awareness, just being here right now. And this is one of the most beautiful gifts that I was given in my life. This capacity to just come back to here, how it is here now. What's the experience here now? And I find myself doing the same thing these days when I'm thinking, like, oh, what's going to happen with the world, for my parents, am I going to get sick? All these things, or the financial the difficulty that might be coming for me or for us, And so I could be easily spinning. And now I learned to meet uncertainty with sensory awareness. Is one of the answers, by just coming back to what's real, what's actually immediately happening here now. And here now, there's a body sitting, breathing. There's the quiet of the night where I am, and the encounter with you. And in that, I don't know if I can transmit that, or if you feel it, or people watching us, being with us. But for me, there's a door that opens, a doorway to a different view of the world. I might be caught in the story of me in the future and what will be of me. And then suddenly I just feel the here now, kind of fall out of the storyline. And in a way, I'm freed for a moment. And in that, there can be, it can be very nourishing. Nourishment is the way I can be, bring peace to the mind. And it can make the kind of story I cling to become very relative. It can disappear for a moment. And suddenly there's just, I don't know, the birds singing, or the belly rising and falling. And so I've learned very step by step to meet uncertainty with more quietness, more attention, and less mental constructions. That would be one of the answers I would have for that. I don't know if it makes any sense what I'm saying.
Totally. Just listening to you, I noticed I was beginning to feel more in my body and really feel more confident in how to meet this very difficult moment. So you definitely transmitted to me this sense of how to intelligently move forward in this kind of a time. And thank you so much for sharing your personal story of how you have stayed strong and stayed, what helped you really keep going in such a difficult time. Mm-hmm. I'd like to keep,
and I think
going
please.
In this. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so what I notice in this is that there's I can actually kind of believe in a threat. Like there's an immediate threat here, and my heart races, and my state of mind is all contracted. But through the practice that I'm describing just here, I noticed that I can become aware of that there's actually no threat right now. And for me, it was the same with the HIV. A lot of the fear I was experiencing was about projection, how it's going to turn out. Little did I know that one day there would be really good medication and that I could become healthy and live a full life. But still, before the medication appeared or were created, I could notice, and that's, to me, it's what we call wisdom. I could notice discernment. I could discern, become aware that there was no immediate threat, like right now. And so many times, I think in our lives, there is no actual immediate threat. And the threats that we're overpowered with by are kind of made up by the mind. And I'm not saying here that there is no viruses or the COVID-19 or the HIV. They do exist. But often it's in the very moment, it's the mind creation that is scary. Anyway, that's just what I wanted to add here.
So key. That's such an important nuance that you brought. And what I want to say to that too is that when we can realize that there's no immediate threat and come back to our center the way you're talking about, we also strengthen our bodies and minds to be better prepared to meet whatever we're facing, right? So all of these practices that you've been speaking about of coming back to what's here and now, they actually support our whole systems, including our immune systems, to be stronger, right? So it's not a small thing what you're talking about. So I wonder if you'd also share what, you mentioned fear and the way it can really take us over. I imagine in this time, and as you shared in the time when you were faced with your HIV diagnosis, what are some ways you could share about how to deal with strong afflictive emotions like fear, like shame, like guilt? I know a lot of people I've heard are experiencing, just helplessness in this moment. They can't be there for loved ones, or guilt that they're okay, but other people aren't. Just like in general, how do we hold all these emotions that can be so painful and so confusing and take us over?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're not going to be able to say everything there is to say about emotions and strong emotions and afflictive emotions, but just a few ideas here. What comes to mind for me immediately is kind of habitual relationships that we might have with difficult emotions, and just check for yourself at home if you recognize something in there or not. But for me, I've noticed that either I'm totally caught in the emotion, duped by it, fooled by it, under its spell. So in impatience, for example, I'll feel that everybody's so slow and they so don't get it, and people are like this, so I can be totally under the spell of the emotion, or it could be despair, as you say, or shame or fear. And another way that I'm in relationship with difficult emotions sometimes is that I'm aware of them and I despise them, fear them, don't want them, don't want to feel them. I'm tired of them. So I'm either pushing away or being caught in. And what my dear teachers have taught me is to actually, and it's very subtle work, it's very, how do you say that, developmental, it's progressive, it's a long road. But what I've learned to do, and what we're learning together maybe to do through these practices of mindfulness and the wisdom of the Buddha, is to actually, there's a little revolution that can happen, which is to become interested in an emotion rather than being totally led by it or pushing it away, what we could call the middle path, which would be to become interested in it. So probably you can do this. You have to start doing this with slightly afflictive emotions, or not in a full-blown kind of overwhelming emotions, but let's say there is a disappointment that I'm experiencing, or slight fear, or discomfort, or slight shame. In the practice of mindfulness that I find so incredibly powerful, one become just interested in this phenomena that is called an emotion or a mind state. And so in the practice, I'll become like, oh, Pascal, strong reaction. Oh, the body contracts. So I'm not so much in the story of what it's telling, but I'm becoming aware, interested in the experience itself, almost as a universal phenomena of nature. I don't know if I can convey this, but mindfulness is a little bit like exploration. We're studying human nature. And so it's not so much my fear, but the phenomena of fear. Oh, look at this fear. How does it behave? Oh, yeah, it's in the throat or in the chest. Oh, it's in the belly. And then I become aware of it. I don't know if you can see, but there's a revolution happening there. The relationship is changing. Instead of believing what it's telling me or pushing it away, I become interested in it. Oh, uncomfortable, Pascal. Okay. Oh, here you want to disappear. I'm in a situation and I'm uncomfortable. Some shame washes through, and I can become awake to it, interested in this phenomena, wanting to disappear, to not be here. Feels like this. It feels exactly like this. And what I find beautiful and maybe strange in this is that to me, that's my connection with humanity. If there is this experience of confusion, oh, human beings, they experience confusion. Here it is. Oh my God, confusion. This is such a human experience. Ambivalence, rage, fear, anxiety. These are very, very much human experiences. And in a way, I have a chance now to come very close to this, very close to the human experience. And in this, to me, again, this doorway, it's so interesting that something like fear or shame could be the doorway to curiosity, to compassion, to tenderness for humanity, for our shared humanity. Oh, we're all in this together. We all experience uncertainty, to come back to this that we were talking about earlier. We all experience uncertainty. Look at this. I'm experiencing it now. This is part of the fabric of life. Human beings, they don't know what's coming for them. Wow, I'm touching this in a very intimate way. And how can this, instead of leading to more fear, how can this lead to, it's a kind of alchemy, how can this lead to awe? Wow, uncertainty. We all don't know what's coming for us. How amazing is this? Maybe even there's a taint of joy right now in it for me. That's strange. That uncertainty could lead to joy or compassion or deep acceptance. So that's one of the ways I think of kind of negotiating or entering in relationship with emotions. I could go on, I could go on because other ideas jump to mind, but I'll stop here for just now.
That's so beautiful, Pascal. I'm so struck by your touching into joy, and the way that even in the midst of great difficulty and discomfort, it's not that you can't touch joy, right? In fact, as you go deeper into what the real experience of this moment is, that joy is because of this sense of being connected and really being, right on the edge of what's really real and alive. So I wonder if you'd talk a little more about joy and how joy is important on this path, and how can we practice to cultivate joy and states of mind in times like these, as a practice, as a general practice, but especially in difficult times, because I think most people, we tend to think that if we're in difficulty, we can't experience joy, that they cancel each other out. So I'm really, so interested to hear how they can be held together.
Yeah, that's also a very rich topic. The first thing that comes to mind here is I would want to be very careful. I wouldn't want to kind of invite, what we call spiritual bypassing, meaning like kind of putting on top of everything, on top of stress and fear and anxiety, joy. Okay, let's be joyful. We have to be joyful now, and spiritual path is joyful, and there's space for joy. The joy that we want to access is more stable, more real, more. It's not something that you put on top or demand, or it's and particularly talking about strong emotions, as we were just a minute ago. The experiencing joy around this is very kind of subtle work, and I wouldn't want anyone to judge oneself because they don't have access to joy in an experience of despair. It also would be totally natural that there wouldn't be any joy available in the heart or mind or the whole system here for a while, or in different circumstances. So it's very, very delicate when we talk about this, I think, about joy. So it's not imposed, or there's no kind of violence around, like, we should be joyful. And so that would be the first thing I would want to say, very delicate. And yet, there might be, in times like these, I think, there's a few ways that I see joy arising, and also the importance of joy. I think joy is nourishing. And so in a way, it's good to have this exploration of where it's interest, investigation, where can I find some joy or beauty, or some ways to refresh the mind, to nurture the mind, so that it can actually turn and be with the difficulties, with stability, with courage, with energy, with being resourced, if I can say it like this. And so that's the kind of a dance of the spiritual path, huh? Because if we're just in joy, we could be kind of stuck there, and there would be a half of the world missing, where one would be invited to actually notice that there are difficulties, there is injustice and stress for people, and all kinds of perturbations, And so the art of the practice, I think, is the capacity to be stable, in balance, in the difficulties, and have access to courage and tenderness and compassion, and the capacity also to have enough flexibility of mind to look around and be able to notice what works, what is beautiful. And so, and I've seen this also. I think it's part of what comes with a thing like a pandemic like this, is there's some amount of love that rises up, where we appreciate those that we love. I see this in many cultures, many countries, where people really suddenly appreciation. It's a kind of joy. I have gratitude for the people who take care of us. who take care of our health or the sick, people who take care of feeding us in all the different kinds of ways. And so there can be a nourishment there. So there's not just the uncertainty and the disease and death, but there is also the courage, all those who take care of us. And so there's joy to be found there, I think. And I think another way that we can experience joy, all of us, is by, the joy of protecting each other, the joy of non-harming. That source of joy, and here in the context that we're in, actually practicing social distancing, how do you say in English? Social distancing. Anyway, reorganize it in good English for me, please. But practicing this is an offering. It's truly something that we can offer each other for a while. It's not easy, but it can be a source of joy to see that we can contribute. And so not harming people. And I'm thinking of, in confinement, if you still are where you are, we live, some of us, in close contact with others with a lot of duration. And so actually protecting relationships with speech, with actions, with thoughts, not harming the other with my thoughts and my words, and actually becoming very intentional about this can be an amazing source of joy, I think. And the joy of generosity, of giving. Other joys are kinds of joy are the joy of quietness, the joy of an undistracted, unscattered mind. That's not in the main culture very, very valued, but there's something about a mind that has quietness to it, that has dedication in the way that it's, when it does something, it does it fully. When we do something, if we do it fully, prepare the meal, fold the laundry, there's a way that we can find joy in slowing down, if we can, in paying attention and giving attention. So these are kinds of joy. The last one I'll mention is the joy of curiosity. Being curious about this experience. We've never been in this together. How interesting is that? I've never been in this situation before. How interesting. There's a doorway there to joy, enthusiasm, curious joy, curiosity.
Beautiful. Thank you. As you speak about all these different ways to bring joy into our daily life now, I'm struck also by the kind of the concern, the question I've been hearing in my circles of how do we use this time, which is presenting us quite an opportunity. How do we use it to get all the lessons, to get all the gifts from this time and take them with us when this changes, right? And so I'm curious, as we're coming to the end of our time, like, what are some ways you would encourage us to really, of course, we know everyone's situation of this pandemic may be different. Some people may be more busy. Some people may have more time. Some people may be more stressed. Some people may have more time to rest. But what's your sense of ways we can use this extraordinary time that we've never encountered before to cultivate qualities that can really carry us now and as things change, right? Because they are going to change again, and will keep changing. So yeah, if you want to speak to that.
Well, I think that the question that you're bringing is extremely powerful. How can we use this time? How can we make the best of this time? I think it sounds like a koan, like a kind of question that you don't answer with words, but you answer with life, with living, and you answer with being very, very attentive. And you answer maybe with silence, attentive silence, curiosity. So how can I make the most of this time? Seems like it requires to me to be very attentive, to discern. That's a kind of wisdom, huh? The capacity to discern opportunities for growth, opportunities to open the heart, opportunities to stabilize the mind, the heart, opportunities for courage, for patience, for the capacity to be with the unknown, the opportunities for creativity. So this is really a good description of certainly one aspect of wisdom, the capacity to discern, to recognize opportunities. That's very wise when one is able to recognize opportunities. And so your question, I receive it as a transmission from you, like a gift from this encounter here today. How can I? This to me would become a very alive question. And also what comes to mind is that almost in a way of neuroplasticity, I think we're always training something. We're always training our minds. So being impatient, I'm training impatience in the mind. I'm developing these neural pathways, right? And so, or so am I told. I don't know. I don't experience the exact developments of neural pathways, but in experience, in a felt sense, I know that when I give airtime to care, to the capacity to listen, or to be honest, or to consider the other, when I experience this, I know that I'm developing that capacity to care or listen or consider more deeply what's happening instead of my kind of knee-jerk reactions and preferences and opinions. And so being aware that I'm constantly training my mind in these times, I would want to know from moment to moment, what am I training in right now? What am I training? Oh, I'm training worry. What else could I train? And I think there is sometimes at least the capacity to reorient, especially if we know what is going on, if we are aware of what's going on in ourselves, if we're mindful, conscious, awake to what's happening in ourselves, then we can maybe reorient. I was about to, I don't know, trash somebody, gossip about somebody, but I become aware of it. Whoops, I might reorient and think, how could I protect this being with my speech? So, so being aware that we're constantly training. What do I want to train in this moment? What's my opportunity here? So that's what comes to mind, Kaira Jewel.
Oh, thank you so much, Pascal. That's so profound to really notice what's arising and choose. We can choose, even if it's already there. We can still. I'm going to do something else. And thank you so much for that reflection. So I wonder, on that topic of, that theme of how we can bring this into our lives in this moment, this mindfulness, this tenderness with uncertainty, the joy, this wise way of turning towards difficult emotions with curiosity. You've offered so many gems, and I wonder if there's some kind of brief practice you'd like to offer us that we can do now, but then have as a tool that we can come back to in our day.
Yeah, there is something that I've been playing with these days. And this is how I see this whole practice of whatever you call it, a spiritual practice of mindfulness or whatever. I see it very much as exploration, trials and errors, and even maybe with playfulness when it's available. So we try things out and we stay awake and aware, and we notice what works, what doesn't work, not making a big story out of oh, it didn't work. No, oh, it didn't work. I'm learning from it. But so these days I'm playing a little bit with a practice around loving kindness or benevolence or friendliness in that area of the heart area of caring. And I've heard someone. It was just one sentence. I think somebody was describing love or loving kindness as a practice of renunciation for them. They were saying when you remove, what's hindering the friendliness or the benevolence or the goodwill, when you remove what's there that is an obstruction, like resentment or preconceived ideas, biases, or limiting views, ideas, opinions. All these, when you remove these from the view, and then the love or the care naturally flows. And so I'll invite you, if you want, you could close your eyes wherever you are, and to practice this love as renunciation. The way I play with it these days is maybe you could think of somebody that you spend time with, that you're in relationship with, and think of this person. Maybe they come to mind. You see them, or you have them in mind. They come to mind, and you could think, if you want, for a moment, just for a moment, as an experiment, secretly, I free you from my limiting ideas about you. I free you from my judgments, from my expectations. I free you from my demands. I free you from the better version of you I have in my mind and keep expecting or demanding. For a moment, I totally free you from what is hindering my friendliness. I wish you well. And we could think, if we want, of ourselves. And as an exploration, if you want, you could think, oh, for a moment, at least for a moment, I free myself from the judgments I have against myself. I free myself from my harshness, my self-loathing, preconceived ideas, my limiting views about myself. For just a moment, totally free myself from these obstructions. And I wish myself well. I wish for myself deep well-being. And I'm continuing here, playing with this just a little bit. Maybe thinking about, I don't know, the past. For a moment, as an exploration, I free my past from any judgments I have about it, any preconceived ideas about it, or demands that I have that it be different. I free my past to be exactly what it is or was. And bring tenderness to my relationship to the past. If this makes any sense to you, if you want to play with this, let's do a last one here. Thinking about the future. I free the future from all my fears and demands, all my contractions about it. For just a moment at least, I free my relationship with the future from all the fear and tightness. And I release the future. Maybe if the eyes are open, we could open, if the eyes are closed, sorry, we could open the eyes. And I don't know if this makes any sense. I mean, it does to me, but sometimes I spend time releasing people. I'll just spend half an hour going from one person to the other in my family and in my friends. I'm like, I release you from my ideas about you. It's very freeing. Voila.
That's so beautiful, Pascal. Oh, thank you so much. It really speaks to me personally, and I find that a very powerful practice. I'm going to come back to that and use it often. And thank you so much. So we're going to close up our time, and I wonder if there's anything you want to quickly share with the listeners about any upcoming programs or books or any events that you'd like people to know about or resources.
Well, first, I just want to thank you for inviting me, and just spending a little time with you is lovely. Next time, I hope I get to ask the questions and hear your wisdom. And nothing comes to mind about what's coming up for me. Things are a little bit up in the air, but it's easy to Google me, find me, and I'm always up to something. And I'm just happy to be here with you.
Oh, well, it's such a joy to be with you, Pascal. And I will let people know that if you'd like to listen to this teaching, which I find there's so many gems in this teaching from you, Pascal, you can upgrade and get to have this teaching accessible to you for good. And so you can do that at the mindfulnessmeditationsummit.com/upgrade. So keep Pascal close to you. So yeah, if you have a minute or two of any final thoughts or next steps that listeners can take in their daily lives, and yeah, maybe one thing you'd like to leave us with today, or some practice we can take into our lives to make changes to bring this tenderness with uncertainty.
I'd say, when walking, know you're walking. When sitting, know you're sitting. When brushing teeth, know this is what you're doing. When speaking, know you are there speaking. Just an awareness of where we are in this very moment, where you are in this very moment. Really great interest for this. So losing fascination for what could be and was and will it be, and giving value again to what's happening now. What's happening now? I think there's a lot of richness and discoveries to be made there. So valuing not so much what could be felt and could be seen and could happen or not happen, but what is here? What is here now? Can it be known? Can it be experienced fully? That's what I'd say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Pascal, for joining us today and offering such heartfelt wisdom and compassion and joy. I feel much lighter. So just this has been a great session with Pascal to all of you. And I thank all of you for joining us and for listening, and wish you well.
Thank you for joining the Mindfulness and Meditation Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit mindfulnessmeditationsummit.com. To learn more about our global programs to support you in waking up in all the areas of your life and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for joining us and for sharing these resilience-building practices with your friends and family.